Hi everyone, I'm back to do another video. So my Ulta points order arrived, and I got some Natasha Denona things that I had been missing out on but wanted. Unfortunately, Scarab was out of stock, but among the things I got, and I'll use the other ones in a different video, but today I really want to use the Love face palette. Now this is going to be my first time using it. I haven't even swatched it yet, and this is actually my first time opening it to look at it because it just arrived in the mail. So obviously take these kinds of videos with a grain of salt because it's not like I can test wear time. I have already watched a couple videos of people who managed to get it from Look Fantastic. I did see it go up for sale on Look Fantastic. I had a chance to buy it, but I was in Hawaii at the time and I really did not want to be spending, it was like almost $80 to get it from Look Fantastic with shipping and everything. I did not want to be spending that kind of money on a face palette from Natasha Denona. I just was like, I'm just gonna save my money. If it's really a real thing, I'm sure it'll come out later. And sure enough, there was the announcement that Natasha Denona is coming to Ulta, and I think she might actually be leaving Sephora. Maybe? I am a little nervous about this highlighter. I'm probably not going to be able to use it on like my nose or anything. When I saw people put this on, it looked really washed out, like milky, maybe even borderline gray or ashy, and that actually really piqued my curiosity because I wondered if it would be a little bit more pastel on me, which may be something that I could go for because I do like milky toned blushes. Now as you can see, the shadows, there's 4 mattes and then there's one what appears to be pretty sparkly. None of these are cream to powder, which I'm really happy with. I did recently get some stuff from somebody I follow on Instagram who was parting ways with a significant amount of PR that she just wasn't going to use. So I did acquire some of those items, so shout out to you. You know who you are if you're subscribed to my YouTube. Thank you very, very much. So some of these items that I didn't pay full price for will of course be noted. So to start off with, I'm just going to use some Fix Plus to prep my face. I have noticed lately that my foundation looks a lot better when I use Fix Plus under my primer, and I'm currently just working through this baby bottle. I don't have very much left. I'm just gonna use this up. For some reason, I've noticed that my primer and my foundation just look a lot better with Fix Plus underneath, which I guess shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who is a really big fan of MAC. BOBBI Brown Eye Cream. I do have some residual mascara that I apparently suck at removing. And then I'm going to use my Dominique Cosmetics primer. I'm gonna be trying out a new foundation today. Well, not new to the market. Some of the foundations that she parted ways with were pretty much a dead-on match for me, which is I presume why she wasn't keeping them anymore, because they probably don't match her. But one of the foundations I picked up, I was more curious about the formula as opposed to the shade. I'm not super sure it's gonna match me, so I'm not gonna use it in this video, because if I like it, I may add it to my wish list. So one of the things that she sent me was this Makeup Forever HD Skin Foundation. I am definitely a foundation kind of like magpie. I really love trying out new foundations. There's just something so satisfying about trying a new one. This one is in the shade 1Y04, and in parentheses it says Y215. Yeah, it's a little bit, I would say that this is probably like what would be considered a perfect match for me, but I do kind of like it when I'm like about half a tone up for the brightening effect. If this oxidizes, then it is going to be too warm for me. So I can actually see this being a really great mixer for some of the foundations I have that are too light. I feel like I'm not really getting any coverage out of this though. Okay, so I feel like I got really light coverage out of that. I feel like some of my discoloration is still kind of visible, but it does look like I don't have any foundation on, but I can see there's a little bit of coverage. My cheeks need a lot of coverage. And I mean, I guess you can see on camera because I try my best to make sure that you can kind of see what I'm doing on camera with how close I zoom into my face. And I feel like the sponge does kind of absorb a lot of the product, so that could also be part of the reason that it's looking the way it is. Okay, and then the other thing that I've been testing out is the DASIQUE concealer palette. I totally was so excited when I first saw this drop on Beauty Box Korea, but with how expensive their shipping can be, I prefer not to buy from there if I can avoid it. It sold out on Olive Young really quickly, so I waited for it to come back in stock and then I bought it, and it since has sold out again. It's a lot thinner than the JX one. There's thinner amount of product will get onto the brush. Like, it is a pretty solid product though. Like, I do really like it. It's very precise, very easy to lay down. It doesn't blend out as easily as the Tom Ford one, so like I kind of just lay it down like that. And my brush is like, I like fully load the brush so that the bristles are all evenly coated, and then as I lay it down I'll also use very light tapping motions, and I'm really just focusing on that groove. And then once I have the coverage that I like, you can build up the coverage pretty high. I'm going to just use the other side of the brush to blend out the edges. And I will take the extra up into the inner corner of my eye. I find it has a really flattering brightening effect on the corner of my eye. Now, if I don't prep my under eye correctly, this can be a little bit drying. So like today, it's a little bit more dry looking than normal, but if I prep correctly, it looks really nice. It is concealed pretty darn well. I just forgot to color correct. Oops. So usually I will kind of go for a mix of these 3 shades here. I'll kind of mix them all together. Honestly, I just kind of mix everything together though. I really love how many colors come in this because I just feel like I really can mix up whatever color so I can be as brightening as I want or not. And then I do like to kind of go in with my finger and just very lightly, barely touching my skin, just make sure everything is just kind of nice and blended. But yeah, as you can see, the groove is not completely gone, but it's pretty darn good. And this concealer, you can create much thinner layers than with the JX. So that does make it, I think, easier to use because the JX one, it is the highest coverage concealer I have in my collection. But as you have seen in my videos, it can take a lot of just patience and time to really blend out and work out. And it can be drying, especially in the winter if you don't prep correctly. I'm going to use my SUQQU lavender powder to brighten up the center of my face. I have sung my praises about this powder before. It's a real shame it's not available anymore as far as I can tell because I think this is one of the greatest powders of all time. And you can see how the lavender adds that brightening effect, so now my under eyes don't look so jarring. And I love how this powder, it mattifies and smooths, but it's not drying like at all. Like it's just crazy. This powder is absolute magic. I don't know why brands make complexion products limited edition. Because like you're gonna use it up and then you're not gonna have it. So as you can see how the lavender brightens the center of my face and it's so beautiful. There's other powders I've tried before. Like I tried a Givenchy loose powder once that had blue in it and it made me turn straight gray. This one is so perfect. And I've tried other lavender powders. I tried the one from Menagerie, but I feel like that one also made me look really ashy. This one has just the perfect amount of pigment. And I need to speed through this video because I bet y'all are here just to see the Love palette, not to hear me talk about other stuff. I'm going to use the Rare Beauty eyeshadow primer, and then I'm going to do my eyebrows. I hope more brands come to Ulta. If Shiseido makeup and Tom Ford makeup and YSL makeup and then also Rare Beauty and Charlotte Tilbury came to Ulta, and as well as even Makeup by Mario and House Labs, then I would be very, very happy. I probably would like almost never shop at Sephora ever again. I'm going to do my eyebrows. I'm going to use the ESPOIR Brow Balance in the shade Cool Gray. Yeah, I was watching a recent Get Ready With Me from Minsko where she was talking about developing products for other brands versus starting her own brand, how she had thought about it, but it's just so much work. She really likes being able to just focus on product development without focusing on all the other stuff and letting companies handle the rest. It definitely makes me really happy to know that she has every intention of continuing to collaborate with brands to produce products, because I really have never had a single bad product from her that she has worked on. And I do also have from that same Olive Young order her Shade and Shadow palette with Clio, because it doesn't have any pressed glitters in it, thank goodness. I'll make a video about it soon. And then I'm just going to use my brow flick to draw in some last hairs. Now, I did put on setting powder even though I'm about to use cream products, so I guess we'll see how this performs over powder. Thankfully, SUQQU powders are really lightweight, so I'm hoping it's not too bad. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and make a look. I do intend to use all these shades, so we'll see what I can come up with. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and start off with this shade here, and then I'll go darker, and then I'll go lighter. A little bit of powder kickback, but otherwise. I have said before, but her creamy matte formula is pretty much my favorite matte eyeshadow formula of all time. I just find it to be so easy to use and also blends out really well and just it wears really well, and I also don't really have to prep my eyelids or worry about my eyelids being dry that day. I've definitely, of course, heard people say that they did not really get what the hype was all about, that they had a really disappointing experience. And then I've heard some other people say, oh, Pat McGrath's mats are their favorite, and it's not actually my favorite. So your mileage may vary. Makeup is super personal, but for me, I really never had a reason to dislike Natasha Denona's matte formula. Alright, so I'm just going to lay down that basic layer. As you can see, that went on really quickly. I don't really care about this staying close to the lash line or not because it is so light it can be blown out a little bit. The only thing is that these three shades run much cooler, and then you have this random warm shade. We'll work with it, I'm sure it'll be fine. So I'm going to go into ICO, which is that dark purple, and I'm just going to start building it up at the outer corner. I'll zoom you guys in, hold on. I'm kind of creating that shape there. I'm gonna switch to a tinier brush that will afford me a little bit more precision. I'm gonna use this Blend Bunny B1. It is extremely small, while at the same time, it is dense, but at the same time, it maintains just enough fluff. And I am gonna kind of darken right against my lash line with it. I am not really getting a true to pan shade here. Now, of course, I'm not using a packing brush, but now I know that when it comes to powder matte purples, they're not necessarily easy to make. I do appreciate how easy this is to blend out, I will say that. Like, for example, compared to the purples in Flight Club, I do think this is a very, very significantly better purple than that one is. As you can see, I'm really having no issues blending it out. It just isn't quite looking completely like dark like it does in the pan, but it does build a nice amount of depth. It does look really nice. I'm going to go back into Giddy and just add a little bit more of this shade to really help blend out ICO, and then use a clean brush. I'm just going to use slightly more aggressive motions to really get that blend. Yeah, so it's like I'm kind of doing like a very strong V shape right here. I think it looks interesting, and I'm also going to start working that on the lower lash line. I'm not really gonna connect it though. Yeah, I'm going a little bit faster this time now that I'm using a good brush. Okay, now we're gonna just go back to that other brush and go back into Giddy. Okay, so now I'm going to take a diffused blending brush and I'm going to go into Juliet. I'm kind of nervous about the effect this might give. It might kind of make the whole look ashy, but I'm going to use this to blend out the top, and it'll also kind of add a nice pink hue to everything. And I'll also just put a little more here just for that tinge of pink. I do like that it does build up well and it's not shearing out into nothing. You can see definitely there's a flash of pink right there, which is really cool. And now I'm just going to go back into ICO again and add a little more depth. And hopefully on top of Juliet, it can blend out a little more easier. Yeah, that's not half bad. Yeah, I do like that. That's pretty cute. Okay, so now lastly, I need to find a place to put Esme, which whenever I see that shade, honestly, all I can ever think of is the series of unfortunate events. I'll try placing it maybe out here. Ooh, I like that. That adds a really nice bit of intensity. Not really much depth, but definitely a lot of like saturation. Oh, I do like that there. I feel like that really kind of amped up the look on top of the purple, just to add a little bit of saturation. This color is much more saturated than the other one is. I like that right there. It's not really I'm not using like a huge amount of it, of course, but I think it's actually quite nice having that little bit out there. And you can see even with me using a flat packing brush, how easily this shade is blending. I really don't have to do anything and it just kind of blends. I do really like how this turned out matte-wise. That was definitely a real pleasure to work with. So now I'm going to go into Affinity, which is right here, and I'm going to use this on my eyelid area. It does pick up nice on, it does feel kind of thin, but it does pick up nicely, and I'm just going to lay it pretty much right in the middle of my eyelid. I'm going to of course make it more packed on in the center and then diffuse out I love how this almost has a topper-like quality to it as well, so it really just looks like it's super like glossy and sparkly. Yeah, I do really like her duochrome topper-esque shades. I think they just always have such a nice quality to them. And I could imagine this being packed on more with like a glitter glue or with just a brush or with dampening the brush or whatever, but I love how it looks this way. I'm gonna put a little bit of it on the lower lash line and then I will call this look more or less complete. Unlike most indie palettes these days, this shade is not gonna feel like squishy at all or anything. It does still have a nice smoothness to it, but it doesn't feel like it has like oil or anything. So I do find personally I usually have a really great wear time with her shadows. I don't usually have an issue with them fading. This is so pretty. I could just pile this on forever and forever. I'm just gonna put like a little bit more on right in the center. Okay, so this is gonna be the finished look using Natasha Denona Love. I am gonna go ahead and put something on the inner corner, and I think for that I am going to use the Plexi Glow Highlight. I'm gonna use this on the inner corner, so I'll just pop this on camera really quickly. This highlighter is okay. I was personally a little bit let down by it. Like, I expected it to actually have like multiple colors, but it all just kind of ends up looking the same. It is very pretty on the skin. Like, it does look very pretty, it's very smoothing, but it's not worth the price. And I did buy this collection off her website so that I could review it as soon as I could, and while that was an interesting experience, her website ships really fast, so the website experience was fine, but the whole experience of, oh, I'm gonna buy this super quickly so that I can be one of the first to have it up, I was just like, no, never mind, because I didn't even end up having it anywhere near first anyways. I'm not gonna do that again. So I'm gonna now finish up the rest of my makeup, do some lashes, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so my lashes are on. I just have the House of Lashes Love and Light, I think is what it's called, whatever. So now I'm going to go ahead and start playing around with these Cream Blush and Dream Glow formulas. I'm a little bit nervous because I totally forgot what I was doing and I powdered my face earlier. So I'm going to use a denser brush. It does seem a little bit like it's like on the drier side. It doesn't seem like it's going to be quite as like lotiony feeling, which is nice. Ooh. Now I'm just going to start stippling it down. It's kind of tough to blend. It is not really taking off what's underneath, but what I laid down, it's kind of clumping to itself. It doesn't really want to move. So yeah, I definitely should make sure next time to build this up more slowly. This is a very cool tone blush, but my eye look is a little bit warm, so it kind of clashes a little bit, but that's okay. I am going to go over this with a powder blush later because as you can see, it kind of, there's some clumping here where it didn't quite blend out the way I wanted it to. So I'll just take a little bit more, add a second layer. Try this brush, it's a little bit more, has a little bit more give to it. As you can see, the application is now much lighter and it's not all transferring from the brush. Like with the Laura Lee brush, all of it transferred. There's like actually no product left on the brush. It is blending out a lot better. There is not any clumping here this time. And it's not really lifting anything underneath. It's not super matte or dewy. It just kind of takes on whatever is underneath already. Really interesting shade for sure. It's not quite lavender, but I can see why people would not really like this shade. It is so purple toned without being truly lavender that this is not gonna really be a favorite shade for a lot of people. It's definitely a shade you either love it or you hate it. I feel like if your skin is too warm in terms of undertone, but if you have like cool olive or neutral or cool, then I think you might actually really like how this blush looks on you. So yeah, with this softer brush, it takes a little bit more building, but it does blend out a little bit easier. So I'll insert some comparisons at the end of this video. I'm going to try the Dream Glow next. Now I have a feeling, I find it really curious that this is so cool borderline purple and this is so warm, so I don't know how well these will go together, but we'll see. So I'm just using my favorite highlighter brush, which is actually the Kuromi Wet n Wild dual-ended brush. I'm just gonna lay it on top of the blush or else it's gonna cast. You can still kind of see that it's casting a little bit on me. These don't really go super well together. Interesting to say the least. It's a good formula. I do like her highlighter formula, but yeah, this is definitely not gonna work on like my nose or anything. It's a little bit more sparkly than her other powder formulas, but it is quite pretty. Her highlighter formula I generally don't have issues with. And I am gonna take a little bit and put it on the inner corner of my eyeshadow because I feel like the inner corners of my eyeshadow on second thought are not quite right. It is really pretty on the inner corner. That is quite nice. I almost feel like this highlighter synergizes better with the eyeshadows than with the blush. Like I could imagine you putting this on with this shadow would look super, super pretty. But yeah, very interesting shade of blush. Definitely not for everyone. Even I don't always find myself going for shades like this. I prefer an actual pastel lavender over this. I'm going to use a lavender blush over this to help kind of blend it out. And I'm going to use this one from 2AN, this one right here. It's pretty pigmented. It's not awful. I'm just gonna use this. I'm gonna use a denser brush and I'm gonna pick up a pretty significant amount, you can see, and I'm gonna use this to really blend out those edges and add some lavender hue to the blush. You see the difference there? It just appears a little bit more blended now. I have some blushes from Chinese brands I've been eyeing that have some pretty unique colors. I may buy some soon. And then I do like to use this to add some volume to my chin. I am gonna now take a very cool toned contour. I think a cool toned contour will kind of help add some dimension to my face while also not detracting from the overall look. The KALEIDOS Trio, and I'm just using this middle shade right here. And I'm just gonna use that right behind everything so that I can add a little bit of depth to the entire look. I'm not really using this to like shade my face too terribly much since my foundation is a little bit closer to my skin tone this time, but I just want to cool off the edge of my face. And I do like kind of making my jaw look a little bit smaller. I am going to use a different highlighter for my nose, the Rare Beauty highlighter on my nose in the shade Enlighten. I'm not super sure how I feel about this. It's a little dot on the tip of my nose. And then I am gonna just take the rest right at the highest point of my cheek. And I'm using very, very, very light pressure because I do not want it to look super shiny because this highlighter is almost too much, you guys. And then whatever is left over, I'll just stick under my brows. Yeah, I feel like this highlighter is almost too light for me. If it ever comes back in stock again, I may look into picking up the second lightest shade, but I don't know, that shade might be too dark for me, so kind of in a weird spot with this. But the JACLYN Cosmetics Lip Liner in Faith, and I am going to use a cool lip. This lip liner is more sheer compared to her other lip liners, and I actually really like that because it really lets me kind of blur the edge of my lip. I'm going to try this shade from Urban Decay. It's in the shade Love Trap. It's the shine formula of the Vice lipstick. It's one of the shades I haven't used yet. This is a shade I knew I wasn't going to use often, but I do want to have a shade like this around. I'm the kind of person where I do like to have a fairly comprehensive collection of lipsticks because I do so many odd looks that it's nice to have that shade when you need it. The only thing about wearing lighter colors like this is that my lips do tend to look a little bit short. So what I do is I take a darker lip liner and I just color in the corners of my lips. And then it just makes my lips look a little bit wider because my lips are not super wide. Like my lips look like my lips looks like a tiny little circle. My mouth is like so like narrow. And if you hear snoring on the mic, Gates is just, he must be sleeping like a log right now because his snoring is so loud. Bless his heart, he's trying his best. I need to take my hair to go and get trimmed. I'm gonna get it washed and trimmed tomorrow at the hair stylist place. So this is gonna be the completed look. I do really like how everything turned out. I think my eye look is honestly the best part of everything. So I actually really like the eyeshadows, and this duochrome topper situation is one of my favorite formulas from her of all time. So I am really happy to see her continuing up with this, and I think this is better than some of the recent ones I've seen. Like the ones in her pastel palette were okay. This is like a step above, so I hope she continues doing it this good. Now knowing her, she giveth and she taketh away. The highlighter is actually works much much better with the eyeshadows than on my face personally, so I actually think that should have been the inner corner highlight I went with, which is why I went over the Plexi highlighter with that, and I think that just added the perfect finishing touch. The blush is going to be totally up to you if you go for this shade or not. I do like this kind of shade, but it's a super polarizing shade. Even if it does theoretically look good on you, you may not like how it looks on you. It's just such an interesting color. But I did find it a little bit difficult to blend. As you can see, I went over it with a powder blush and now it looks way better, but using it all by itself, I was like, oh, it kind of like didn't want to really blend. I personally find her cream cheek formulas to be like kind of hit or miss, like they're not super consistent. I will say the whole face palette I think is like what, $69, so if you're getting it and you don't like the face shades, to me that is just a colossal waste of money because her mini palettes are $25 and even her full-size 5-pan minis are $45 or something like that. So that is still way cheaper than just getting this face palette because you only like the shadows. So if you have like a lot of spare change and you don't mind, then I sure go for it because these shadows didn't disappoint me at all. But you are kind of sort of wasting your money if you're gonna get this just to use the shadows. Like, I think that the face shades were too disappointing for me to justify suggesting you go and pay full price for this, knowing that it's mainly the eyeshadows that are carrying the whole product. Considering that I use my Ulta points on it, I'm obviously not gonna like feel like I wasted my money. So I would recommend waiting for a sale or waiting for Ulta points so that you can at least know that you're getting some kind of deal on it. Like if Natasha Denona in like a century from now is like 10x points, then maybe you could justify getting this, considering that if you spend it's like you spend $200, you get $125 to use on your next purchase. Like that's a pretty good deal. Here's my arm. I'm sitting at a really weird angle to the camera, so like I said, swatches are not really my thing. Right here, this is the Game Beauty and Persona blush, so as you can tell it's way more purple, not the same at all. This right here is the Natasha Denona Love Face Palette blush, definitely not the same as this. And then I have 3 cheek pops I thought would be kind of similar. This one in the middle here, this one is Plum Pop. I think this one is going to be the most similar. It's just a little more pink and intense. And then actually, well, this one's also kind of similar too, but it's a little bit lighter. That's Baby Marble Pop. This is exclusive, I believe, to Asia. This is not easy to get your hands on. And then this last is the rather popular Pansy Pop, which is one of the most accessible purple tone blushes on the market. And this is actually way different than I thought it would be from this one. But you can kind of see they all kind of have the same vibe, especially I think the Natasha Denona blush versus all of my Clinique cheek pops here. I think they all honestly have pretty similar vibes, and you could pretty much get very similar effects out of all of them, and they even have a somewhat similar finish considering the cheek pops are not matte. I will say they all are still quite different from each other. Cool tone blushes, all the cool tone blushes I have in my collection are actually quite nuanced compared to each other versus my warm tone blushes all kind of look really similar. Cool tone blushes I find tend to all look a lot more different from each other, but I think you can kind of see comparing here that they are, aside from the Persona one, these 4 are all kind of similar in terms of vibes. Alright, so I hope that this video helped you guys out. Please let me know if you have any questions about anything. I don't really do swatch comparisons that often, but for something like this I did think it was kind of relevant or important to do, since I know not everyone's gonna want to buy this palette, but you may want something similar. I think that's gonna be it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this little get ready with me using the Love Face palette. I personally had a really great time, but I also didn't use my cash on it, and if I had used my cash on it for this kind of performance and this kind of shade, I do think I would have been disappointed. So I'm glad I didn't get it from Look Fantastic. So with that all said, I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.